Good afternoon, Greg.
Hello, Keith. Good to see you again.
Yes, I know we say the same thing every week, like it's all right. That was another week gone by, but today is Wednesday. Normally we're on Tuesday, so
Right, right. Our weekly biz talk has been weekly, but not always the same day of the week.
I know.
Right.
So, but normally I'll say, boy, that week went fast. Well, these 8 days went fast. Oh boy. So
Some days a week feels like 8 days.
that's true. That's true. It depends on those are usually the bad weeks.
Yeah, right.
So, as you and I were discussing earlier, um, and we both coach, you know, obviously, we have a lot of things in common, but that's one of them. We coach different specialties. I'm sales and marketing, you're, finance, operations, uh,
Right.
customer service, but they all work together. I mean,
Sure.
there's no business that can survive just with sales because you need to be able to deliver a product or a service and provide customer service and support and there's an accounting department. So I never
Yeah.
hired a coach. It's funny. Like I really could have used mentorship, and I may have even mentioned that in one of. I think we talked about mentorship in one of our earlier episodes. But there's something about an outside perspective that is so valuable that I think a lot of business owners or even those who are just independent um, sales reps or
Mhm.
or they still function as basically their own business. We need a third eye. I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, it's and I'm sure. I mean, of course, you'll tell your own story, but why does one get into coaching? I mean, it's like I know where I why I decided, but what made you decide that, what, I think coaching is something I'd really like to do.
Yeah. Really three things, Keith, when I made that decision. One was I felt like I had been doing this for 25 years, but I had been doing it working for a specific company, coaching and mentoring a specific business owner leadership team. So again, it didn't feel like it was something that was out of left field for me. It felt something that was really natural. Secondly, I wanted something with some flexibility, the ability to kind of set my own hours and not go into the same office and work 10 hours a day and go home, but have something that was a little different from what I've ever done before. And third, and probably the biggest reason was I really felt like I had something to give back to business owners. I mean, I really believe that through my experiences, my training, my education, I have a lot to offer to business owners, and I want to help them. I want to see them succeed. I want to see them achieve more. I want to see them have an awesome workplace where people want to come to work. I've been in environments like that, and I've been in environments where nobody wanted to come to work. No, nobody was happy. Nobody was, everybody was walking on eggshells for a number of reasons, and it's it's just night and day, right? A well-run company versus a poorly run company, and I'm sure you've seen it over your career. You almost recognize it immediately. And from an employee standpoint, from a business owner standpoint, it's just night and day, not just in the work environment, but in those individuals' lives. Yeah, I know we don't like to take work home with us, but we're kidding ourselves, right? We're as a business owner, you're always thinking about work. And yes, you try to separate and disengage for a period of time because that's healthy. But it's always, you can speak to this, I'm sure, but it's always on your mind. It's always there. And when things are going well, life is good. And when things are going poorly, it seeps into your personal life, and
Yeah,
it's in all facets. So
I think I mean, that's one of the reasons that there is a good segment of the world that does not want to be in their own business. They don't want that responsibility. They want
right,
to be able to leave work, go home, and just do what they want to do without having to say, oh, I gotta finish that job. I better get in early tomorrow. And not to say there are employees that go above and beyond, because there are. But why do they go above and beyond? Generally, they're working in an environment that's nurturing and cares, and that they're compensated fairly. Okay. But all the more reason why coaches are needed, because why are there unhappy employees when they want to be employees? It's not like
right,
they're saying, I don't want to be an employee. No, they've made a decision that they want to be an employee. They want to work for somebody. But the trade-off is I want to work for a business that treats me properly, that pays me a fair wage,
yeah,
that provides benefits, and that the environment is healthy, where I don't have to feel like, oh, I don't want to go in today, or oh, I can't wait to go home. I mean, and we've all spoken to people that have gone through that, and
sure. I've been one of them.
oh yeah, yeah. So I know, but I'm saying that the thing, I mean, I've spoken about it so many times. My family makes fun of me. They're tired of me talking about my 40 years that I've been doing this. But one of the things that brought me to coaching is because, just like you had 25 years of experience that you could offer to others, not just the people that you work with. So you can offer that experience and have a real sense of accomplishment when they accomplish what they want to, based on the guidance that you've provided to them. But I suggest there's something else, that not just from me and my motivations, but even for you, you just might not realize it yet. We get better at our craft when we coach and we teach. And the reason I know that so well is because, I mean, I think I've told you, I'm a 5th degree black belt.
Right,
I've studied the martial arts for over 20 years, and talk about something that's repetitive, you know, could be extremely monotonous, but all we did all the time was the same thing over and over and over and over. And then, so you got good from repetitive, training, but you got even better when I started to teach. I reached a certain belt level. Part of the requirements is that you start to teach. And when you teach, you have a different view of what you're doing and how you're doing it. So you start to look at everything you say, how you say it, when you say it, why you say it, and you're like, okay, I'm really focused in on how I'm going to make my client better at what they do. But you're making yourself better at the same time, because you're saying, like, you know something, I'm giving advice I got to take for myself, because I'm seeing things right now. Now I'm on the outside looking in as opposed to the inside looking out. So I
yeah.
see it with a totally different perspective. So
I really like how you said that. That's and it resonates with me as a coach, what you just said. That when we practice tasks and activities, we do get better at them.
yeah,
Yeah. Right? It's the reason, great athletes, the greatest athletes in the world, they practice. They practice all the time.
yeah,
Right? And why? Because either they want to maintain their skill level or they want to get better. And usually it's they want to get better,
yeah.
right? Because they have that competitive drive.
Well, it's, I mean, there's really great ones like, Kobe Bryant should rest in peace, but he's spent countless hours in the gym. He outworked everybody. Why?
Mhm.
Because he didn't want to just get better. He wanted to be the best.
Right.
Okay. So, I
Well
mean,
said.
he took it to a whole other level. Michael Jordan as well. I mean, it's in
Mhm.
every sport. You look at the real superstars. They do start out with more talent than everybody else, but that can dissipate over time. And if you don't constantly work towards improving, you will not get better. You will actually start to, reverse
Oh,
everything.
absolutely. Absolutely. I know we could both think of athletes that we've seen over time who looked like they might be, superstars and whose careers fizzled.
Yeah,
And there can be a lot of reasons for that, but I think number one is they just didn't put the work in.
yeah. They started to believe in that they had enough talent to not keep working at it. They
Right.
just, and that'll work when you're 21, 22, 23 even. All of a sudden, when you get into your late 20s, early 30s in sports, and it's no different for us as business people. We get to a certain point, everything is like, repetitive, and it's, you know, how do you improve yourself? How do you do better? How do you strive for more? Well, in a work environment, um, you have to have it within you to want to go that extra mile, where you're asking your manager or your boss, like, what else can I do? How can I improve, my skills, or how can I work towards a promotion? I'd like to be a manager, right now I'm just, a clerk. How do I get there?
Yeah.
So,
I think what's interesting about that, Keith, is you're talking that way from the perspective of an employee. And they typically have a supervisor or somebody who helps them lead them through that thought process. But if you're a business owner and you say, what do I need to get better at? Who do you ask? You ask your employees. That can be a little risky and a little unnerving, right? If you
yeah,
don't have that, if you
yeah,
don't have that trusted advisor, whether it's a coach or whether it's somebody else that will actually give you honest feedback, how are you going to get better? Because it's hard for us to look at ourselves and say, I have to work on X or Y or Z. But go back to the athlete example, right? All of these individuals we mentioned, they all have coaches, right?
yeah,
Right? And they have specific coaches. Like Tiger Woods had a swing coach. Tom Brady had a quarterback coach. Kobe Bryant had a shooting coach.
yeah.
Um, they have individuals who can evaluate from the outside looking in and really help them master their game.
Yeah, and the thing is, and I think, when we get to the point when we are in our own businesses, there's a tendency to let ego get in the way. It's like we know everything, we've reached this level, I really don't, coach can't help me, it's like
Right,
I'm there.
right. I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. Right. I'm
Exactly,
okay. Right.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that, you know, the the two words that resonate with me is proactive versus reactive. We generally live reactively, okay,
Sure.
not proactively. So we don't go to the doctor, if we don't feel well, or something. We just wait till we really, we don't go for a general checkup unless someone's pushing us. It's your annual checkup, it's time. And even then, you're supposed to go annually. It's an annual checkup. Next thing you know, oh, it's been 3 years. Wow, how'd that happen?
Right.
And you know what I'm talking about because we all go.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the time to get a coach is not just when you have problems. Time to get a coach, is when you're really honest with yourself and you go, you know, I'm doing well, but I want to do better. I
Yeah.
want to be better. I want my life to be easier to manage. I'm spending 60 hours a week working. Am I really productive in 60 hours, or could I do this in 40 hours? You know, you can't answer those questions for yourself.
You're right. And I think, the analogy I'm thinking of is, um, if you were a homeowner, do you want to take steps to prevent a fire in your house? Or do you want to kind of call the fire department when there is a fire? Well, clearly you want to do things in advance to prevent ever being in that situation, right? And I'd say the same thing as a business owner. Yes, you can look for a coach when business is down and you have a really chaotic situation. Sometimes that is when business owners recognize that they need a coach. But isn't it so much better to be in a situation where you're bringing somebody like that in when things are not chaotic and on fire, but rather, hey, things are going well today, but I'd like them to go better. I'd like us to go from good to great, or I'd like to put a plan in place today so that I don't have that fire in the future. Maybe the circumstances were such that if I hadn't done this, I would have been in chaos, but because I've brought in a coach, because I've been proactive, I'm going to avoid that situation in the future.
Yeah, look, it's like anything else, if you have a leak in your roof, okay, and it's not that bad, the infamous, it's not that bad, and it's only leaking, in a room I never use. So I have a pail there so that it leaks down, it's like, and I've been in people's homes like that, has that been going on for a while? Yeah, I've been meaning to call the plumber. It's just I'm so busy. And so what happens is, of course, that leak turns into something that instead of fixing that leak in the pipe, so it leaked through. Now you got to replace the sheetrock and the tile, and it's like that in business too, because if you
Mhm.
have a minor problem, it could turn into a major problem.
Yeah.
But again, proactive versus reactive. And generally, and this, with your own coaching, is that it always comes down to money. Okay. It's like, well, I really can't afford a coach, you know, or a consultant or an advisor, whatever you want to call it. And I don't believe that. And the reason I say I don't believe that is, and it sounds self-serving because like you, I coach, is because there's an ROI to everything, negative and positive. And and the example I just used is that where I could have spent $100 to get somebody in and see where the leak is and to fix it, I wound up having to replace sheetrock, tile, paint, and it turned into a $2,000 job.
Right.
Okay, from 100 to 2,000 is a lot of money, I've unfortunately experienced that kind of stuff, not just in my own home, but in business.
Right.
You're busy, you're busy, you're busy. I'll get to it, I'll get to it. But it doesn't work that way. It's like the same reason you should go for an annual checkup and just make sure everything's good. Having somebody, they don't have to be on your permanent payroll, but if
No,
you have
no.
somebody that even if they came in for 30 days a year, a couple of weeks, whatever it is, and they have a checklist. They know what to do, they know what to look for. That's their training, that's their background, that's their experience. So they can point out things that not the obvious, the unobvious, because those are the things that really become costly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Or missed opportunities, right? It doesn't always have to be
no
something
question.
that's going to cost you, but maybe it's an opportunity cost of, I should have done something I didn't, and I missed out on a big job, right? We talk about the word opportunity cost, right? It's not really a tangible cost, but it's sort of the trade-off of doing one thing for another, right? So if we miss out on a big opportunity, right, we had a chance to add revenue, add profit to our company, and we didn't do it, we've missed an opportunity. There's an opportunity cost there.
Yeah, and you know what's so interesting is that when you've spent as much time, honing your skills as we have
Mhm.
in our areas of expertise, you you don't even have to look at, in your case, look at someone's books. Okay. Just the questions you'll ask, okay, you will know pretty quickly with a pretty good percentage of being right that they're not doing something. Okay.
Right,
Or something's
right.
off. The same thing with me on the sales side. I
I was
could
just gonna say,
I could sit in a restaurant, okay, that I'm dining at, and within 5 minutes, by the way I was greeted, by the way the waiter or waitress, how quickly they came over, okay, how, how long it took for not just my meal to come, because sometimes they are busy, it could take longer. I've seen where the attention to detail was so great, where the waiter or waitress came over, but I apologize, we're a little busy tonight, no problem. I think we talked about this
we
a
did, yes.
episode where, you know, would you like to have a drink? Go to the bar. I really apologize. I mean, there's so many things that you don't see from the inside
Yeah,
that coach, consultant, or whatever you want to call us, can see. And not only will it save you money, okay, it'll increase your revenues, because remember, we talked about the negative effect of poor service, poor delivery, poor product choices. The opposite is so true, because no one looks, if you're not sophisticated enough in business, which most people early on are not, they don't even understand the concept of lifetime ROI.
Mhm.
There's a return on investment and a value of a customer over the lifetime. It's like if I dine at a restaurant once a month and I spend, $300, 12 months, that's $3,600.
Right,
Over 5 years, you know, 15, $18,000, whatever, you're the math guy. So,
it's a
uh,
lot.
yeah, but I'm saying that,
Yeah,
and that's just me, not to
yeah,
mention that when I'm happy, all my friends know about it. Okay.
right.
My friends come there, So I was a retailer. So I understood that concept. For me, that was really baked into my DNA. Okay. But there were other parts that I could have really used help, could have used somebody to come in. And I had an accountant. So I don't want to say that I had no guidance, but there was multiple parts of, even the process of buying. I always overbought, always had too much inventory on hand. Didn't manage inventory because I was selling like a fashion item, and I loved new stuff. So
Sure.
my wife would say to me, "Well, let's get rid of the old." No, no, no. This stuff, I know I could sell this, blah, blah, blah. Oh man, I would fight it. But I think if for us, when we're speaking to people, I think part of what we need to do is educate them on the value proposition, because I think there's too much of, oh, it's X amount of dollars, I can't afford that.
Mhm.
Well, let's examine that. You say you
Right,
can't afford it, but the analogy of you probably didn't want to spend the money to fix your pipe at the time, and instead of spending 100 or three, whatever it was, you wound up spending 2,000, all because you didn't want to spend the money then. You didn't want to be proactive. You wound up being reactive and spending that much more money. No different in business. No different at all. It's the same analogy, same scenario.
a couple of things, Keith, that you just said really hit home for me. One is, I think you're right, that ROI on the return that you're gonna get from bringing in that outside perspective, I think, is there's just about always value there, right? That offsets the cost. And not just offsets it, but most of the time is more than the cost of bringing that person in. Let's just say for a second, you worked at, the perfect company in the world that did everything right. And they had a coach come in. And if all you did was validate that, yeah, we are doing everything the right way, even there is some peace of mind that as a business owner, you can put value on. Now, having said that, there haven't been too many situations, I don't think, that you've walked into or I've walked into where there aren't opportunities for improvement or hidden opportunities that aren't being taken advantage of. And let me one more thing I wanted to cover, because it really struck me when you were talking a couple minutes ago. I think sometimes business owners get accustomed to a particular condition or situation. They find workarounds, they find ways to get through and around it. And they get so used to that and so comfortable with it that it's an issue, but they've figured out a way to work around it. And then they stop realizing it's even an issue, right? Those are the kind of situations, I think, like you said before, where if you're not being proactive, but you're being reactive, you're going to end up having to react to that situation, whatever it is. Let's say it's an employee who's not performing well, and you figure a workaround for it. At some point, that's going to come back to bite you. And now you've been putting up with this condition, and you shouldn't have been, but you have been. Again, I think that's a place where somebody from the outside can come in, look at the situation and say, you really need to address this, whether it's a performance issue, a process issue, something within your organization that you've learned to live with. One, you don't need to, and two, you shouldn't.
Well, this is called taking shortcuts, which I've done myself. I mean, listen, you can't know everything. And I bought my own BS. I thought that I knew enough and I could see things. But even if you're intuitive and you can see things, you're always going to miss something. You're always going to miss something. It's impossible for you to see everything.
We all have what we call blind spots.
Yeah.
And there's no getting around those. Now, some people have bigger blind spots than others, but because of our perspective, right, we just can't help but have something that we can't see as well as somebody else could. When you're driving your car, and now they make cars a lot differently than they used to, because now you've got mirror upon mirror upon mirror, right? But there's still blind spots. When you teach somebody to drive today, you still teach them that when you're changing lanes, when you're making a change, you're gonna look over your shoulder, because the mirrors capture a lot, but not everything.
See, that's a very good analogy, because that's we all have blind spots, as you said, and that's something that, as a business owner, if you do not acknowledge that you have blind spots and that you don't know what those blind spots are, you'll never hire a coach, because one, you think that you know everything, which
Right.
I suffered from early in my career, and you will have this unwillingness to allow somebody else into your world. Sometimes it's fear, because none of us want to be told that we're not good at something, like, oh, you
Yeah.
missed something.
Yeah.
I mean, so is this ego involved?
We don't want to hear that our baby's ugly, right?
No, we don't.
We just want to be told how good, how beautiful it is.
That's
And
right.
in our business, for a lot of business owners, that baby is, their business is their baby, right?
That's
And so
right.
they'll take it personal, or they'll take it personal when they get feedback that says your business isn't perfect, right? And you're right, that is hard to hear. That is
hard
hard to
to
hear.
hear, but I think a lot of it is not what you say, it's how you say it. And as coaches,
Absolutely.
you could be critical without being mean. You can point something out constructively. You can point it out from your own experience. Like I have no problem being self-deprecating, saying, look, I screwed up. I
Yeah.
made mistakes.
Yeah.
I've cost myself, I don't even want to talk about the number of dollars I've cost myself through uh blindness to what was going on, and unwillingness, okay, to really allow somebody else into my world that could give me advice.
I totally agree. And I think that, our leadership team is going to do that. In a good company, the heads of sales and marketing and ops will feel comfortable raising some issues, but they're not going to be comfortable raising all issues
They can't
because they know how
hear.
close to home some of those things hit to the business owner. I'll give you an example. I used to work for a company where, dad was the president, I was sitting in that CFO seat, and the son was sitting in the quality leader role. Well, it's pretty difficult for the son to be critical of his boss, who's also his father. Right? I mean, how how transparent is he going to be, and how open is he going to be in that situation? With some things, very, very transparent, but not everything, because there are just some things that just aren't going to be said in those kind of dynamics.
Yeah, and there's the other problem is that the longer you're in a leadership role, the more stuck in your ways you become, which means that you're not open to your employees or even senior management, to say, hey, we're suffering here as a company, and guess what? You're part of the problem.
Right.
Now, a third party coming in, okay, and that's their role. I mean, their role is not to come in and make you feel better, unless they truly find there's nothing wrong, which is always something wrong. But even if you found like nothing that was earth shattering, you still, with knowledge and experience, you can show somebody or give them guidance on how to grow their business even more.
Right. Right. Well, and as you just said, Keith, maybe it's not something earth shattering, but maybe it's something we've just gotten, as an organization, we've just gotten lazy on, right? You know what? We used to keep up this scorecard every week, and we'd review it. Now we update it every couple of weeks, and not everybody looks at it. And it's like, well, no, there was a reason you put that scorecard in place, because you wanted more immediate feedback on how your business was doing. Now you're getting lazy. Things were going well. You thought, oh, we don't really need to look at that. No, we need to look at our scorecard every week, every day if we have a daily scorecard. And we need to understand what those numbers are telling us. And we need to take action based on what those numbers are providing to us.
Yeah, and it's you and I have talked about it. I mean, one of the things that you coach effectively on is leadership. Leadership is about accountability.
Right.
I mean, the old saying, the buck stops here, but the buck stops here not because you're going to blame somebody else, okay? But everything that happens in a business, if you take the position, it's my fault, you can't go wrong with that, because
Right.
it sets the tone for the rest of the company.
Yeah. Yeah. Even if that's something that's, not directly like, hey, we didn't do anything wrong, but our environment's changing. Our landscape is changing. The competition is changing. And you say, and I've seen business owners do this, where they'll say, well, yeah, my business is down, but there's nothing we can do about it, or it's not really anybody's fault. It's just what's happened. It's
Yeah,
like bullshit.
it's always an
Okay.
excuse.
Don't sit there and try to rationalize that. if you really want to grow your business and you're not because the environment around you is changing, well, you better change to the fact that the environment's changing. Because if ultimately your goal is to grow the business, as a business owner, you never say, well, I want to grow the business as long as the environment I'm in doesn't change. Right? That even sounds stupid to say.
It's
And
crazy.
yet sometimes those are the actions that we see from business owners. They
Yeah.
don't say those words, but their actions sure support that.
So yeah, lack of action is also an action,
That's very true. Yeah. Not
and
making a decision is a decision.
it's
Yeah.
correct. It's correct. And look, this is a little self-serving because we obviously do this for a living in terms of coaching. But we know what we bring to the table. Okay. We know that there's a value there that, and there's a direct ROI in terms of how a business operates. They raise their game. And again, our job is to push the people who are in charge to take responsibility for the failures. If you have a sales guy who's not performing, you hired him, or one of your managers hired him, but you hired the manager. So ultimate responsibility is yours, but you also have to be a team player. You can't, treat your employees like they're, just underlings. They have to be part of your family. You have to treat them as such, because that's when real failure happens. And that goes to culture. That goes to caring. These are the things, and that was last week's episode, but it all fits. But the theme for today is, why are more businesses not taking a proactive approach to getting an outside viewpoint? And I don't care if it's a family member or a friend that's been there, done that, that's willing to give you the time, and you don't, because you don't have to spend the money. At the end of the day, you need somebody, a coach, a mentor, that can give you their perspective without any bias.
Right.
We don't go in bias like, oh, we have to tell you, what you want to hear. You're hiring us to tell you what you can't see and what you don't know.
Right.
So
I think it's one of the real advantages of sitting in the seats that we sit in, is that with our clients, we aren't employees. We aren't there every day.
no,
We aren't dependent on that client for a job, right? It's not our only source of income. So we can be more open, transparent. We can say things that an employee who sees the same thing might not say, because they're concerned about the reaction.
yeah,
It's hard to
get fired.
criticize. It can be hard to criticize a coworker,
Yeah,
right? Because I got to work with this person every day, right?
yeah. It
But
really,
for us to come in, and again, it's not about finding employees to be critical of. It's about identifying issues within your organization that are preventing you from getting to your objectives.
yeah. And something, the whole idea of bringing somebody in is not for us to shake up the boat.
Oh,
Our job is to learn from the employees, because it's not just talking. You don't just talk to the employer. What we do is we analyze. I mean, we analyze every aspect of the business, from the sales team to the support team I mean, we need to see from the outsider's point of view. We ask questions that, what do you as an employee, or the head of marketing, or the head of sales, what do you think can be improved? What do you think? Okay. What's stopping you from, meeting, your objectives?
right.
A boss is not, boss should be doing that, but generally they're not going to be.
Or they're not going to get
honest answer.
an honest answer.
Right, yeah, so look, uh, this has been a very interesting discussion as usual, and um, I think, this is something we'll continue to talk about. I think that um, I think we need to start to invite, some of our clients
Mhm.
onto these calls because
Yeah, yeah, it'd be good to hear their perspective.
correct,
Yeah.
and I think people like to hear from somebody other than us what we think. All right, so that
What do
ends
you
this.
mean? I think we are very entertaining, Keith, and we know everything. So
Well, listen, I didn't want to say that, but now that you've said it, I think I'm going to agree with you. Of course, we know everything. And
um,
coaches need coaches too, by the way.
coaches need coaches too, and coaches have blind spots as well.
No
So
question. No
yeah,
question.
yeah.
All right, my friend. So until next week, I thank you. And how you twins doing this week? You doing all right?
They're doing okay. They're doing okay. They're unfortunately they're chasing the Indians,
Or
and
really hot?
the Indians are looking like they might be for real. So
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, my Mets are playing very good baseball. They beat the
I,
Yankees
I
today.
saw they beat the Yankees the other day. That almost counts as two wins, right? When you're a Mets fan, it's
It's
a win in the win column, and then it's also bragging rights.
yeah. Well, we got another one tonight. We'll see what happens.
Right, right.
All right. I'll see you next week. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Keith.